just released top 10 list for Yankees prospects by Baseball America. Mateo finds himself #1 on the list, followed by Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, James Caprillion, the pitcher just drafted last year, Domingo Acevedo, rookie Davis, another right-handed pitcher at 6, and then Tyler Wade, Rob Refsnyder, and Wilkerman Garcia, along with Dustin Fowler. That's your top 10. And as we continue on Yankees Hot Stove, we welcome in Josh Norris from Baseball America via Skype to talk more about the Yankees' top prospects going into 2016. And Josh, it's funny, about mid-year last year, not a lot of people knew the name Jorge Mateo, but they sure did after that. What did he do to really stand out?
Well, he plays above average defense at shortstop. He's got a better than average arm. He needs a little more accuracy on that arm. But as an offensive player, he's got a swing that's geared toward line drives, and he's got more power than you would expect from a guy who hit like 2 or 3 home runs this year. But if you sit and you watch him during batting practice, you can see he can hit balls out to all sectors. And as recently as 2013, before the handbook, Mark Newman, the former farm director of the organization, was saying, you're going to want to know the name Jorge Mateo. He's an 80 runner. He does all these things very well. He kind of projects to be a guy like Jose Reyes in the long term. But, he keeps getting hurt. But you will know that name in the future. And people have been asking him for him in trades before this trading deadline, certainly.
Yeah, for an 82 stolen bases, you don't see that kind of speed in those numbers very often. How much could that help him get to the majors faster than another prospect?
Well, he could be a guy that if the Yankees make the postseason or go deep into it next year, he could be a guy at the very least like Terrence Gore, who you'd bring up as a pinch runner to get you that extra bag if needed. But he's got a floor or a ceiling much higher than that. Eventually, he's going to be a guy who you're going to see that speed continue to be utilized, and he'll start bouncing up the levels. This year, he'll probably go back to high Class A Tampa, and then if everything goes well, he'll get that first taste of the upper levels. And we'll see what if he's a prospect or a suspect at that point. But right now, he's got the highest ceiling, I think, of anybody in that organization.
All right, so Josh, #2 on the list, Gary Sanchez. We saw him at AAA last year, a little bit at the end of last season in the majors, and a standout Arizona Fall League. How much did that not only help him as a player in confidence, but help the organization think we can use this guy next season in the majors?
Oh, I think it helped him tremendously. If you had told me at midseason that my top 10 Yankees prospect list was going to have Gary Sanchez at #2, I wouldn't have believed it. But he had a phenomenal second half of the year on the field and off. He finally got out of AA Trenton and went to AAA Scranton and really killed it. And then in the Fall League, the reports were off the charts. You have raw power, you've got an unbelievable throwing arm, and he's popping times of between 1.79 and 1.9 seconds down to second base, which is absolutely elite. He's got the raw power. He's got the ability to hit for average, not a 300 hitter by any means, but if he hits 260 with 20 to 25 home runs, you've got yourself an all-star, which is what they've been selling him as for years. And it took him until he's now to look like he could reach that ceiling.
All right, so we've taken a look at the numbers for Gary Sanchez. We move on to #3 in Aaron Judge, who was #2 last year. So Mateo and Sanchez slipped by him in the rankings. Is the reason for that what he did when he got to AAA? There was a little bit of a step back.
Yes and no. I mean, the strikeout rate didn't spike that high at all. It's the questions from evaluators that have been out there, ever since they drafted him. He's 6'7" with big, long arms. And if you're a major league pitcher or a AAA pitcher, you're going to be able to find lots of holes you can exploit. In the futures game in particular, he struck out a couple times, and pitchers found areas both up and down and in and out and away where you could get him to swing and miss. With a guy that size, strikeouts are going to be a question, and that's not anything different for Aaron Judge. People compare him to a guy in the minor leagues right now for the Tigers named Stephen Moya, who's got basically the same body, maybe not as Blake Griffin-esque as Aaron Judge is, but it's the same height, same long arms. He strikes out a ton. He's going to hit for some power, and it'll probably be magnified a little bit in Yankee Stadium, but evaluators outside the organization aren't as high on him as guys inside the organization are necessarily.
Well, do you think there's pressure on him going into 2016 to basically put up those good numbers at AAA and say, hey, I am your right fielder of the future? How much pressure is there for him?
I mean, it's New York, so there's always going to be pressure. I'm sure you're going to get every daily newspaper, every tabloid down at Scranton at some point this year, especially if Beltran struggles, saying, hey, Aaron, you're the right fielder of the future. Are you ready for the bright lights? The crowd around him at this year's futures game, especially because he happened to be next to the Mets guy, Michael Conforto, was 4 or 5 guys deep from New York. asking him all sorts of, are you ready for the Bronx? Do you want to be in that spotlight? It'll be there, but if he's as even-keeled a guy as everyone says he is, he'll handle that just fine. It's just going to be a matter of producing, whether there's pressure or not.
One guy who did produce for them last year, not top 10, he is number 11, and that's Brian Mitchell, the right-hander. Is it safe to say that the Yankees have seen enough that they think he can kind of slot into what that old Adam Warren role was?
That's what I would do if I were them, quite frankly. The reason he didn't make the top 10 for me is because I just don't know what role he's going to fill long-term. He's got the stuff to be a starter with a big-time fastball, a big-time cutter, a hammer breaking ball. That's all there. The command is not great at times, but it's gotten better. But do you want him as a starter, maybe a back-end starter type of guy, or do you want him at the end of a game? Maybe as Dellin Betances' backup if they were to trade Andrew Miller, or do you want him in that swingman role? He's a very valuable guy with really good stuff, and I know evaluators outside the organization would very much like to have him in trades because they told me so during the initial research for this top 10.